When a single father in a wrinkled shirt walks into a Fortune 500 interview with his 6-year-old daughter, everyone laughs until he drops a professional MMA fighter in under 30 seconds. But that 30-second fight wasn't the real test. It was what came after. A billion-dollar conspiracy, a CEO fighting for her company's survival, and one man who refused to let her fall. This is the story of how a child's stuffed rabbit, a father's deadly skills, and a woman's desperate gamble collided into something nobody saw coming. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The glass doors of Nexera Technologies whispered open at exactly 8:47 a.m., and Ethan Ward walked through them like a man who'd already lost everything that mattered. He wasn't supposed to look like this. Not here. Not in this temple of steel and ambition where every surface reflected success back at itself. His shirt, white, cotton, definitely clean this morning, had picked up wrinkles during the subway ride. The left cuff had a small coffee stain he'd tried to rub out with spit and a napkin. His tie sat crooked. His shoes were good ones, maybe 3 years ago, before the soles started separating at the heel. And then there was Mia. His daughter walked beside him, one small hand wrapped around his index and middle fingers, the other clutching a stuffed rabbit that had seen better days. The rabbit's name was Mr. Hopsworth. One of its button eyes hung by a thread. Mia was 6 years old, wearing her favorite dress, the blue one with yellow flowers that she'd picked out herself because it reminded her of the picture book about the garden. Her hair was pulled into 2 ponytails that Ethan had managed after 3 YouTube tutorials and one minor meltdown about the brush pulling too hard. She looked up at him as they crossed the lobby. "Is this where you're going to work, Daddy?" "Maybe, baby. We'll see." The lobby was enormous, 60-foot ceilings, marble floors polished to a mirror shine, a reception desk that looked like it cost more than Ethan's entire annual income. And people. So many people. 63 of them, according to the email he'd received. 63 candidates for one position, Nexera's new head of personal security. They were all here, all of them dressed like they'd stepped out of a catalog. Sharp suits, designer watches, leather briefcases, hair that moved in unified directions. They stood in clusters, networking, laughing at jokes that weren't funny, performing confidence like it was a required skill. Ethan felt every single pair of eyes turn toward him. Then he felt them turn toward Mia. The laughter started small. A chuckle from somewhere on his left. A whispered comment from a woman in a gray pantsuit. Then it spread like a wave breaking against a shore. Is this a job interview or a daycare drop-off? Maybe he's looking for the family entrance. Someone should tell him this isn't bring your kid to work day. Ethan didn't respond. He'd learned a long time ago that men who looked like him, men who showed up with wrinkled shirts and children and lives that didn't fit into neat boxes, didn't get the benefit of the doubt. Responding meant engaging. Engaging meant losing. So he walked toward the registration desk, Mia's hand still in his, and pretended the room wasn't watching. The receptionist looked up. Her name tag said Claire. She had kind eyes, which Ethan appreciated more than she'd ever know. "Name?" she asked. "Ethan Ward. I'm here for the security position interviews." Claire scanned her tablet, her eyebrows pulled together. "I don't see you on the— Oh, wait. Here you are. You were added late. Last night, actually." She glanced at Mia, then back at Ethan. "Is she— Are you—" "I couldn't get a sitter," Ethan said quietly. "I called yesterday and explained. They said it wouldn't be a problem." That was half true. He'd called. He'd explained. Nobody had actually confirmed it wouldn't be a problem, but nobody had said no either, and Ethan had learned to interpret silence as permission when he had no other choice. Claire hesitated, then smiled at Mia. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Mia. This is Mr. Hopsworth." She held up the rabbit. "He's very handsome. Okay, Mr. Ward, you're checked in. Head through those doors, take the elevator to the 43rd floor. Someone will direct you from there." "Thank you." As they walked away, Ethan heard Claire pick up her phone, heard her say something about the candidate with the kid, and, "Should I notify someone?" He kept walking. The elevator was packed. Ethan and Mia squeezed into the back corner. The other candidates filled the space around them, still performing, still peacocking. A man in a navy suit that probably cost $3,000 glanced at Mia, then at Ethan. You know this is for head of security, right? Not building maintenance? The elevator laughed. Ethan didn't. I know what it's for, he said. Just checking. Wouldn't want you to be embarrassed when you realize you're in the wrong place. Mia looked up at Ethan. He squeezed her hand twice. Their signal. I'm okay. You're okay. We're okay. The 43rd floor opened into a reception area that made the lobby look modest. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Furniture that belonged in a museum. Abstract art that Ethan suspected cost more than a house. A woman in a black suit stood waiting, clipboard in hand, expression carved from ice. Candidates, follow me. We'll begin with the preliminary assessment. They moved as a herd. Ethan and Mia trailed at the back. The woman led them down a hallway lined with glass-walled conference rooms. Through the windows, Ethan could see people working, meetings happening, deals being made, the machinery of corporate power grinding forward. Then the hallway opened into something unexpected. A training facility. Full size. Rubber mats covering the floor. Weight racks along one wall. A boxing ring in the corner. This wasn't standard office equipment. Nexara takes security seriously, the woman announced. She still hadn't introduced herself. Our CEO, Ms. Monroe, requires protection that goes beyond theory and certifications. We need to see what you can actually do. A murmur rippled through the candidates. Half of them looked excited. The other half looked like they'd just realized they'd brought the wrong resume. You'll be assessed on situational awareness, threat response, and physical capability. We'll begin with basic combat scenarios. When your name is called, step onto the mat. She started reading names. One by one, candidates stepped forward. They sparred with instructors, former military by the look of them. Some did well. Some didn't. Ethan watched, cataloging techniques, noting patterns. Mia sat on a bench against the wall, swinging her legs, humming something under her breath. "Daddy?" she whispered. "Yeah, baby." "Why are all these people fighting?" "It's not really fighting. It's like showing what they know, like when you do show and tell at school." "Oh, are you going to do show and tell?" "Probably." "Will you win?" Ethan looked at her. 6 years old, too young to understand what winning actually cost. Too young to know that her father had spent 8 years in places where winning meant staying alive, where losing meant coming home in a box or not coming home at all. "I'll do my best," he said. 20 minutes in, a man stepped onto the mat who made the other candidates look like children. 6'5", maybe 260, all of it muscle. The woman with the clipboard introduced him as Marcus Chen, former UFC middleweight contender, current Nexara combat instructor. "This is our primary assessment," she announced. "Each of you will face Mr. Chen for 1 minute. We're not looking for you to win. We're looking to see how you handle pressure, how you move, how you think." The first candidate lasted 11 seconds before getting swept and submitted. The second made it to 43 seconds through pure defensive survival. The third tried to strike, got countered, and ended up with a bloody nose. Ethan felt his heart rate slow, that old familiar calm settling over him like a second skin. Muscle memory older than his daughter, older than his marriage, older than the man he'd tried to become when he left the service. Ethan Ward. Every head in the room turned. The laughter started again, quieter this time, but there. "Oh, this is going to be good." Poor guy's about to get embarrassed in front of his kid. Ethan stood. He looked down at Mia. "Stay right here, okay? Don't move." "Okay, Daddy. Good luck." He walked onto the mat. Marcus Chen waited in the center, hands loose at his sides, stance relaxed but ready. He wasn't smiling, but Ethan could see the assessment happening behind his eyes. Wrinkled shirt, dad bod starting to form around the middle, probably pushing 35. No visible muscle definition. This wouldn't take long. The woman with the clipboard raised her hand. 1 minute, begin. Neither man moved. The room went quiet. 63 candidates watching. Instructors watching. Somewhere in the building, Ethan assumed, cameras were watching. He could feel Mia's eyes on his back. Chen shifted his weight, a tiny movement, barely perceptible, testing to see if Ethan would react. Ethan didn't. He stayed centered, hands at his sides, breathing steady. "You gonna do something?" Chen asked. "Or just stand there?" "Waiting for you to commit," Ethan said quietly. Chen smiled. Then he moved. Fast. A jab-cross combination meant to set up a takedown. Professional technique. Clean execution. The kind of attack that would overwhelm 99% of people in under 2 seconds. Ethan wasn't 99% of people. He slipped the jab by a half-inch, let the cross pass over his left shoulder. As Chen committed to the takedown, Ethan's right hand came up, not in a punch, but in a palm strike to Chen's elbow, redirecting the energy, using Chen's momentum against him. Chen stumbled. Not much. Just enough. Ethan was already moving. He stepped offline, hooked Chen's lead leg with his own, and put both palms on Chen's chest. Not a shove. A placement. Leverage and timing and 8 years of training that had nothing to do with sport and everything to do with ending fights before they started. Chen went down, face first, hard enough that the mat made a sound like a bass drum. The room went silent. Ethan stepped back, hands up, showing he was done. Chen pushed himself up, shaking his head, more surprised than hurt. He looked at Ethan like he was seeing him for the first time. What the hell was that? Judo, some jujutsu, little bit of sistema. You train? Used to. How long ago? I stopped about 6 years ago. Chen stood, rolling his shoulder. Could have fooled me. You move like you never stopped. The woman with the clipboard was staring. So was everyone else. The laughter had evaporated. In its place, something else. Respect, fear, confusion. Ethan walked off the mat, back to Mia, and sat down like nothing had happened. Did you win? Mia whispered. It wasn't about winning, baby. But did you? Ethan smiled despite himself. Yeah, I guess I did. 3 floors above the training facility, in an office that cost more per square foot than most people's homes, Avery Monroe stood at her window and watched the city pretend to care about things that mattered. She was 30 years old, 5'7" in heels, 5'4" without them. Auburn hair pulled back in a style that cost $200 to maintain every 3 weeks. A suit that fit like it had been designed specifically for her body, because it had. She'd built Nixera from nothing. 3 people in a shared office space 7 years ago. Now they had 42 floors, 1,800 employees, and a market cap that fluctuated between 12 and 15 billion, depending on which analyst you asked. She'd sacrificed everything for this. Relationships, sleep, the possibility of a normal life. Her father told her she was obsessed. Her mother told her she was throwing away her chance at happiness. Both of them were probably right. Neither of them understood that this, the building, the company, the empire she'd constructed, this was her happiness. This was the only thing that made sense. Her phone buzzed. A message from Derek Vale, her acting head of security. The previous head had retired 2 months ago, and Derek had stepped into the role while they searched for a permanent replacement. He was competent, efficient, maybe a little too ambitious, but that wasn't unusual in Nixara's ecosystem. Everyone wanted to climb. Derek. Preliminary assessments underway. Nothing impressive so far. Chen is going easy on them. Avery typed back, going easy won't tell us what we need to know. Derek. Agreed. Should I have him increase intensity? Avery. Use your judgment. She set the phone down and returned her attention to the window. Somewhere out there, someone was planning something. She could feel it. Had felt it for weeks now, that electric tension in the air before a storm. Anonymous messages, encrypted files sent to her personal email. Warnings that felt too specific to be pranks, but too vague to be actionable. The most recent one had arrived 3 nights ago. No subject line, just a single sentence. You're going to need someone who can protect you from the inside. And attached to it, a file. A personnel record. Military service. Classified deployments. Commendations she wasn't supposed to be able to see. A name. Ethan Ward. She'd had her people vet him. On paper, he was unremarkable. Discharged 6 years ago. Working private security for mid-level executives. Living in a rent-controlled apartment in Queens with his daughter. Wife deceased. Cancer 3 years ago. No criminal record, no red flags. Just another guy trying to survive in a city that ate people like him for breakfast. But the file that had been sent to her told a different story. It told a story about a man who'd done things in places that didn't officially exist. A man who'd been pulled out of combat operations not because he wasn't good enough, but because he was too good. because the things he could do scared the people giving orders. So she'd added his name to the candidate list. She hadn't told Derek why. Hadn't told anyone. If the warning was real, if there was a threat inside her own company, she needed someone outside the system, someone who couldn't be bought or compromised. Her phone buzzed again. Derek. You need to see this. Avery. See what? Derek. Training floor, camera 3. Now. Avery pulled up the security feed on her tablet. Camera 3 showed the training facility from an elevated angle. She could see the candidates, the instructors, Marcus Chen on the mat, and a man in a wrinkled shirt walking away from him while Chen got up from the floor. She rewound the footage, watched it again. Chen attacking, the man slipping the strikes like they were moving in slow motion. The takedown that wasn't a takedown, the redirection, the palm placement, Chen hitting the mat hard enough to make the impact visible on camera. 27 seconds, that's how long it took. Avery checked the roster, found the name. Ethan Ward. She smiled. The assessments continued for another 2 hours. Ethan passed every single one. Situational awareness. He identified 4 hidden threats in a mock office environment that nobody else spotted. Threat analysis. He correctly assessed which of 6 scenarios represented actual danger versus distraction. Firearms proficiency. He put all 15 rounds through the center mass of a target at 25 yards without hesitation. By the time they broke for lunch, the other candidates had stopped laughing. Some of them looked nervous, others looked angry. Derek Vale looked like he'd just watched his carefully planned day explode in his face. Ethan found a quiet corner of the break room and opened the lunch he'd packed that morning. Peanut butter and jelly for Mia, a turkey sandwich for himself, an apple they could share. Mia sat next to him, eating slowly, kicking her feet. Are you going to get the job? She asked. I don't know yet. I think you will. You were really good. Thanks, baby. She was quiet for a moment, chewing. Then, if you get the job, will I still see you? The question hit harder than Marcus Chen's takedown attempt. Ethan set his sandwich down. What do you mean? Jenny at school, her dad got a new job, and now he's gone all the time. She only sees him on weekends. Will that happen to us? Ethan pulled her closer. She fit perfectly under his arm, head against his ribs. Listen to me. No job in the world is more important than you. Not one. If I take this job, it'll be because it's good for us, both of us. And I'll never, ever be gone so much that you forget what I look like, okay? Okay. I promise. You can't break promises. I know, that's why I only make ones I can keep. Across the room, Derek Vale stood with his arms crossed, watching them. He looked like a man trying to solve a problem he hadn't expected. 6'2", athletic build, sharp jaw, sharper suit. He'd been with Nixara for 4 years, working his way up from field security to team leader to acting department head. This permanent position was supposed to be his. Everyone knew it. The interview process was a formality, a box to check for HR compliance. Then Ethan Ward showed up and threw 27 seconds of combat at his carefully constructed narrative. Derek walked over, smiled. The smile didn't reach his eyes. Hell of a performance out there, he said. Just trying to do what was asked, Ethan replied. Where'd you train? That wasn't your typical MMA gym stuff. Here and there, I moved around a lot. Military? Yeah. What branch? Army. Specialized training? Ethan looked up at him, held his gaze. Some. Derek's smile tightened. Look, I'll be straight with you. This position requires more than just combat skills. It requires discretion, political awareness, the ability to navigate complex social dynamics. Ms. Monroe operates in circles where showing up with a wrinkled shirt and a kid doesn't exactly inspire confidence. Mia stiffened against Ethan's side. He felt it. Felt her processing the words, understanding that this man was saying something mean about her daddy, about her. I appreciate the feedback, Ethan said quietly. Just want to make sure you understand what you're walking into. This isn't a bodyguard gig. It's executive protection at the highest level. The person in this role needs to be able to blend into board meetings and charity galas. They need to look the part. And what part is that? Professional, polished. Someone who doesn't bring their personal life to work. Ethan felt the anger rise, that old familiar heat. He pushed it down. Mia was watching. Mia was always watching. My personal life, he said carefully, doesn't affect my ability to do the job. Maybe, maybe not, but perception matters. And right now the perception is that you're desperate. Nobody shows up to an interview like this unless they're out of options. Derek glanced at Mia. I'm not trying to be harsh, just realistic. You seem like a good guy, good dad. But this might not be the right fit. He walked away before Ethan could respond. Mia looked up. I don't like him. Me neither, baby. Why was he being mean? Because sometimes people get scared when they see someone who might be better than them at something. It makes them feel small, so they try to make the other person feel small instead. That's dumb. Yeah, it is. The afternoon session was different, no more physical assessments. Instead, they were brought into a conference room and given scenarios. Kidnapping attempts, corporate espionage, protesters blocking entrances. Each candidate had to explain how they'd handle it. Most of them gave textbook answers. Protocol. Procedure. Calling for backup. When it was Ethan's turn, he didn't talk about protocol. Prevention, he said. Everything else is reaction. You prevent the kidnapping by controlling access points, varying routes, limiting public schedule information. You prevent espionage by knowing your client's business well enough to spot anomalies in behavior or access patterns. You prevent protesters from becoming a threat by identifying escalation indicators before they escalate. The panel interviewing him, 3 executives he didn't recognize and Derek Vale, exchanged glances. That requires an enormous amount of preparation, one of the executives said. How do you maintain that level of vigilance without burning out? You don't, Ethan said. Not long term. That's why this kind of work requires rotation and support systems. One person can't be switched on 24/7. But during active protection hours, yeah, you stay sharp or you don't do the job. Have you ever failed to prevent something? Derek asked. The room went quiet. Ethan looked at him, saw the challenge in the question, the attempt to find a crack in the armor. Yes, Ethan said. Can you elaborate? No. Why not? Because it's classified, and because reliving it won't change what happened. Derek leaned forward. How do we know you won't fail again? You don't. Nobody can promise perfection. What I can promise is that I'll see threats other people miss. I'll react faster than other people can, and if something does go wrong, I'll adapt instead of freezing. That's not very reassuring. It's honest. If you want reassuring, hire someone who'll lie to you. The interview ended shortly after that. The candidates were told they'd be notified within 48 hours. Most of them looked relieved to be done. Ethan just felt tired. He collected Mia, who'd been drawing pictures on scrap paper in the corner, and headed for the elevator. They were halfway to the lobby when his phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Mr. Ward, this is Claire from reception. Miss Monroe would like to see you before you leave. 47th floor, executive suite. Ethan's stomach tightened. When? Now, if possible. I'll be right there. He hung up, looked at Mia. We're taking a detour. The 47th floor was different from the 43rd. Quieter. Darker. Expensive in a way that didn't need to announce itself. The elevator opened into a reception area where a woman sat behind a desk that probably cost more than Ethan's car. Ethan Ward, he said. She nodded toward a set of double doors. She's expecting you. The doors opened into an office that took up a quarter of the entire floor. Windows on 2 walls. A desk that looked like a piece of modern art. Bookshelves filled with titles about business strategy and technological innovation. And standing at the window, silhouetted against the city, was Avery Monroe. She turned as they entered. Ethan's first thought was that she looked exactly like her pictures. His second thought was that the pictures didn't capture the intensity. The way she looked at him wasn't observation. It was analysis. She was reading him the way he'd read the training scenarios. Threat assessment, value calculation, risk versus reward. Mr. Ward, she said, thank you for coming up. Ma'am. Her eyes dropped to Mia. Something flickered across her face. Not annoyance. Something else. Curiosity, maybe. Or recognition. And you must be Mia. Mia pressed closer to Ethan's leg but managed a small hi. That's a very distinguished rabbit you have there. His name is Mr. Hopsworth. Mr. Hopsworth. Very dignified. Avery looked back at Ethan. I watched your assessments, all of them. Okay. 27 seconds against Marcus Chen. That's impressive. He wasn't trying to hurt me. No, but he wasn't going easy either. Derek told him to push the candidates harder after the first few went down too quickly. Chen went into your match planning to make it difficult. She paused. You made it look easy. Ethan didn't respond. He'd learned that sometimes silence was the best answer. Where did you train? Avery asked. Army, specialized units. How specialized? Can't discuss it. Can't or won't? Both. She smiled, actually smiled. I like that you're not trying to impress me. Would it matter if I was? Probably not. She walked to her desk, picked up a folder, and handed it to him. This is the position offer, head of personal security. Your job would be to protect me, everywhere I go, everything I do. You'd need to be available 24/7, with some flexibility for your daughter. We can arrange childcare support if needed. Ethan opened the folder, saw the salary, felt his heart stop. It was 3 times what he was making now. 3 times. Enough to move out of the apartment with the broken heating, enough to put Mia in a better school, enough to stop choosing between groceries and medical bills. This is, he started, more than you expected? Yeah, I'm not paying for average protection, Mr. Ward. I'm paying for the best. And based on what I saw today, you're the best person who walked through my doors. She paused. But I need to know something before we go further. Okay? Why did you stop? 6 years ago, you left the military. You were, what, 26? Peak physical condition, top-tier training, moving up through ranks that most people don't even know exist. Then you just stopped. Why? Ethan looked down at Mia. She was studying a painting on Avery's wall, not really listening, lost in her own world. He thought about the answer. The real answer. The nights he'd come home with blood on his hands and sand in his teeth and memories that wouldn't stay buried. The moment he'd held Mia for the first time and realized he couldn't be both the father she needed and the weapon the army wanted. I had a daughter, he said simply. Priorities changed. Avery watched him for a long moment. And if I hire you, will those priorities interfere with your ability to do this job? No, because keeping you safe keeps her fed and housed and stable. Our priorities align. That's a very transactional way to put it. I'm a transactional guy. Another smile, smaller this time. Start Monday, 7 a.m., don't be late. And Mr. Ward? Yeah? Iron your shirt, totiks. They rode the subway home in silence. Mia fell asleep against his shoulder, Mr. Hopsworth tucked under her chin. Ethan stared out the window at the tunnel walls blurring past and tried to process what had just happened. He had a job, a real job, the kind that came with benefits and security and a future that extended past next month's rent check. He should feel relieved, happy, something other than this low-grade anxiety curling through his chest, because he'd seen the way Derek Vale looked at him, and he'd read the file on Avery Monroe before coming to the interview. He knew she was brilliant, knew she'd built something extraordinary, but he also knew that people who built empires made enemies, and enemies didn't care about collateral damage. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Congratulations on the new position. You're going to need it. Watch Derek. Watch the board. Watch everyone. The threat is already inside. Ethan stared at the message, typed back, "Who is this?" No response. He deleted the text, looked down at Mia, sleeping peacefully, trusting him to get them home safely, trusting him to make the right choices. I hope I didn't just make a huge mistake, he whispered. The train rattled on into the darkness, carrying them toward whatever came next. Monday morning arrived like a judgment. Ethan stood outside Nexara's glass doors at 6:47 a.m., 13 minutes early, wearing a shirt he'd ironed 3 times until the creases looked sharp enough to cut. Mia was with Mrs. Chen, their neighbor, a 72-year-old woman who'd agreed to morning drop-offs at school for extra money. It had taken most of Ethan's remaining savings to arrange, but it was temporary. Once the first paycheck hit, he could afford actual childcare, the kind with licenses and background checks and rooms that didn't smell like cat food. The lobby was empty except for security. A different guard than Friday, younger, looked Ethan up and down with the kind of suspicion reserved for people who didn't belong. Help you? Ethan Ward, starting today. Head of personal security. The guard checked his tablet, eyebrows rising slightly. Yeah, okay, you're cleared. 47th floor. Miss Monroe's executive assistant will meet you. The elevator ride felt longer than it had on Friday. Ethan caught his reflection in the polished metal doors. He looked tired. He was tired. Had been tired for 6 years straight, the kind of exhaustion that sleep didn't fix because it wasn't about rest. It was about carrying weight that never got lighter. The doors opened. A woman in her mid-50s stood waiting, dressed like she charged by the hour, just to make eye contact. Her hair was steel gray, pulled back tight. Her expression suggested she'd seen everything twice and wasn't impressed either time. Mr. Ward, I'm Patricia Voss, Miss Monroe's executive assistant. Follow me. She moved like someone who'd calculated the exact number of steps required to get anywhere and refused to take one more. Ethan followed her through a maze of corridors that all looked expensive and identical. Miss Monroe arrives at 7:15, Patricia said without looking back. She takes coffee at 7:20, black, no sugar, specific beans I'll show you where to order. She has a standing meeting with department heads at 8. You'll attend. You'll stand in the back. You won't speak unless addressed. Clear? Clear. She works through lunch most days. When she does eat, it's usually a salad from the cafe on 42. She's allergic to shellfish. If someone offers her anything with shellfish, you intervene. Understood? Understood. She leaves the office between 6 and 8 p.m. depending on the day. Sometimes she has evening events, dinners, galas, board functions. You'll accompany her to all of them. The dress code for those is formal. Do you own a tuxedo? No. You will by Wednesday. I'll send you the tailor information. They'll bill the company. Patricia stopped at a door marked Security Operations. This is your office. Well, Derek's office. You'll be sharing it until we figure out the transition. She pushed the door open. Derek Vale sat at a desk near the window, looking at 3 computer monitors showing different security camera feeds. He glanced up when they entered, face carefully neutral. Morning, he said. Morning, Ethan replied. Patricia checked her watch. Ms. Monroe will be here in 12 minutes. Derek, bring him up to speed on today's schedule. Ethan, here's your security badge, building access card, and company phone. The phone stays on. Always. Questions? No, ma'am. She left. The door clicked shut. Derek leaned back in his chair, studying Ethan like a problem that needed solving. Hell of a weekend, Derek said. Yeah. You know this came as a surprise to pretty much everyone, right? We had a whole short list. You weren't on it until Friday morning. I know. So what's your secret? Who do you know? Ethan set his bag down on the empty desk across from Derek's. Nobody. I just did what was asked. Right. And she saw that and decided to hire you over candidates with executive protection experience, corporate security backgrounds, people who've been working toward this position for years. Derek's smile was thin. Forgive me if I'm skeptical. You don't have to forgive anything. You just have to show me what I need to know to do the job. Derek held his gaze for a moment, then turned back to his monitors. Fine. Today's relatively easy. Morning meeting with department heads, lunch meeting with potential investors, afternoon calls with the legal team about some acquisition she's working on. No external events. She'll stay in the building. Threat assessment? For what? Nobody's threatening her. You sure about that? Derek's jaw tightened. What's that supposed to mean? Just asking. Standard question. The standard threat is protesters. Animal rights groups because we do pharmaceutical research. Privacy advocates because we collect data. The usual noise. They show up, they chant, they leave. Nothing that requires military-grade intervention. Ethan didn't mention the text message. Didn't mention the anonymous file that had somehow found its way to Avery's personal email. Instead, he pulled up the security camera feeds on his computer and started studying the building layout. What are you doing? Derek asked. Learning the exits, stairwells, blind spots. There are no blind spots. I designed this system. Ethan pointed at the screen. Camera 12, northeast corner, 43rd floor. 3-second gap in coverage when it pans left. Camera 18, lobby level, doesn't cover the service entrance. Camera 23. Those aren't blind spots. Those are acceptable coverage gaps. They're places someone could move without being seen. That makes them blind spots. Derek stood up. Listen, I get it. You're new. You want to prove yourself. But this system has been operational for 3 years without incident. I've run drills, tested protocols, coordinated with local law enforcement. It works. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm saying it could work better. Based on one morning of looking at monitors, based on 8 years of training that taught me to spot vulnerabilities. The office door opened. Patricia stuck her head in. She's here. Derek, you're with me. Ethan, wait in the corridor outside her office. Don't wander. Ethan followed them out. The executive corridor was different from the rest of the floor. Quieter, thicker carpet, art that looked original. They stopped outside a set of double doors. Through the glass, Ethan could see Avery at her desk, already working, phone pressed to her ear. She knows you're here, Patricia said to Ethan. She'll call you in when she's ready. Until then, you wait. Derek smirked. Welcome to executive protection. 90% waiting, 10% doing anything useful. They disappeared into the morning meeting. Ethan stood in the corridor and tried not to feel like a piece of furniture. Other executives walked past, most ignoring him, some offering polite nods. A younger woman, maybe 25, dressed in a suit that probably cost a month of Ethan's old salary, stopped and stared. You're the new security guy, she said. Yeah, the one who took down Marcus Chen. We sparred. I got lucky. That's not what I heard. I heard you dropped him in under 30 seconds, and he didn't see it coming. She extended her hand. Lily Park, VP of Operations. Ethan shook it. Ethan Ward. Word of advice, Derek's going to make your life difficult. He wanted this position. He's been positioning himself for it since our last head of security retired. Then you show up out of nowhere and take it. He's not going to let that go. Noted. I'm serious. Derek's connected. He's got allies in the company, people who owe him favors. Watch your back. I always do. She smiled. I believe it. Then she walked away, heels clicking on marble. 20 minutes later, Avery's door opened. She stood in the doorway, looking at him with that same analytical expression from Friday. You iron better than I expected, she said. I'm a man of hidden talents. Come in. We need to talk. Her office looked different in morning light, less intimidating, almost normal if you ignored the fact that the furniture probably cost more than a luxury car. Avery sat on the edge of her desk, not behind it, casual, deliberately casual. How's your daughter? She asked. The question surprised him. She's good, excited that I have a new job. Where is she now? Neighbors watching her until school starts. That a permanent arrangement? Temporary. I'm working on something better. Avery nodded. Patricia will connect you with our family services coordinator. We have relationships with several high-quality childcare providers. Employee discount. I appreciate that. Don't appreciate it. Use it. I need you focused here, not worried about whether your kid's okay. She picked up a tablet, swiped through something. I'm going to be direct with you, Ethan. I didn't hire you because you can fight. I hired you because you see things other people miss. That display on Friday with the hidden threats? The camera gaps you already spotted this morning? That's what I need. Okay, something's wrong. I don't know what yet, but I've been getting warnings. Anonymous messages, files I shouldn't have access to, information about board members, financial irregularities, security lapses. Someone's trying to tell me something. Ethan felt his pulse quicken. What kind of irregularities? Missing meeting minutes, altered financial reports, access logs that don't match up with who was actually in the building. Small things. Things that could be clerical errors or sloppy record keeping. But there are too many of them, and they all started about 4 months ago. Have you reported it? To who? The board. Half of them might be involved. The police? I have no proof of anything illegal. I just have instinct. A feeling that someone's moving pieces on a board I can't see. She looked directly at him. I need you to help me see it. That's not exactly standard bodyguard work. I don't need a standard bodyguard. I need someone smart enough to spot the threat before it arrives. Someone I can trust. You don't know me well enough to trust me. No, but I know you well enough to know you're not part of whatever this is. You're too new, too outside the system. That makes you either the safest person in this building or the most dangerous. She smiled slightly. I'm betting on safe. Before Ethan could respond, his new company phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. Meeting starting, you're needed. That's my cue, Avery said, standing. Stay close, watch everyone, tell me what you see. The conference room was massive, 20-foot table, leather chairs, a wall of windows overlooking the city. 15 people sat around the table, department heads, all of them looking important and slightly impatient. Derek stood in the corner, arms crossed. Ethan took position on the opposite side, trying to be invisible. Avery entered and the room shifted. Not obviously, but Ethan felt it. The way people sat up straighter, stopped side conversations, focused. She had presence, the kind you couldn't fake or learn. "Morning," she said, sitting at the head of the table. "Let's make this quick. I've got investors at lunch and I need to be sharp. Thomas, start with R&D." A man in his 50s opened a folder. "We're on track for Q3 deliverables. The new pharmaceutical line is showing promising results in trials. We should have preliminary data ready for FDA review by October. Any setbacks? Minor. Nothing that affects the timeline. Good. Rebecca, marketing?" A woman with sharp features and sharper eyes glanced at her tablet. "Campaign launch is scheduled for next week. We're seeing strong pre-release engagement on social platforms. Brand perception is up 11% since last quarter. Actual numbers are just positive sentiment." Rebecca's smile tightened. "Sentiment. But that translates to numbers historically. Historically, I want actual projections by Wednesday." "You'll have them." Avery moved around the table asking questions, pushing back on vague answers, demanding specifics. Ethan watched the room, watched body language, who made eye contact, who didn't, who seemed nervous when Avery asked questions and who seemed annoyed. Most of them seemed annoyed. 20 minutes in, a man at the far end of the table, James something CFO, according to the nameplate, cleared his throat. "Avery, we need to discuss the Meridian situation." The room went quiet. Avery's expression didn't change. "Not now." "It's been 3 weeks. The board is asking questions." "Then tell the board I'm handling it." "They want specifics." "They'll get specifics when I'm ready to provide them." "Next item." James didn't back down. "With respect, this affects everyone in this room. If Meridian moves forward with acquisition talks, it impacts departmental budgets, hiring freezes, long-term strategy. People need to know what's happening." Avery stood. The movement was slow, controlled, but it carried weight. "What's happening is I'm running my company. What's also happening is that you're questioning my authority in a department meeting instead of coming to me privately, like a professional. Which tells me you're not actually interested in answers. You're interested in making a point. I'm interested in transparency." "No. You're interested in undermining me because you think the board will back you. They won't. This meeting is over." She walked out. The room sat in stunned silence for 3 seconds, then erupted into whispered conversations. Ethan followed her out, catching Derek's expression as he passed. Derek looked satisfied, like he'd just watched something he'd been waiting for. Avery was halfway down the corridor before Ethan caught up. "What was that about?" "Corporate politics. Don't worry about it." "You told me to watch everyone." "I'm watching." That felt like more than politics. She stopped, turned. "Meridian is a competitor. They've been trying to acquire Nexara for 2 years. I keep saying no. Apparently someone on my board thinks that's the wrong decision." "Is it?" "They're offering $4 billion. We're worth twice that. But some people see $4 billion now versus $8 billion later and choose now. Short-term thinking. It's how empires die." "Who's pushing for the sale?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out. James, obviously. Probably 2 or 3 others, but I need proof before I can act." They reached her office. Patricia was waiting with coffee and a stack of folders. Avery took the coffee, ignored the folders. "Cancel my lunch meeting," she said. Patricia blinked. "You have investors flying in from Singapore. Reschedule. Tell them I have a situation." "Avery, do it!" Patricia left, looking like she'd just swallowed glass. Avery sat behind her desk and pulled up something on her computer. Ethan stood near the door, uncertain. "You can sit," Avery said without looking up. He sat. The chair was obscenely comfortable. "Your job," Avery continued, "is to keep me alive. But alive doesn't mean much if my company gets stolen. So I'm expanding your job description. Find out who's leaking information to Meridian. Find out who's altering records. Find out who sent me that anonymous file with your name on it. I'm not an investigator. You're observant. You notice details. That's close enough." She finally looked at him. "I'm trusting you with this. Don't make me regret it." What if I find something you don't want to know? Then I'll deal with it, but I need to know. Ethan nodded slowly. Okay. I'll need access to security footage, building access records, anything that tracks movement in and out of secure areas. Derek controls all of that. Then I'll need you to authorize my access over his head. Avery smiled, actually smiled. You've been here 4 hours and you're already making enemies. Just doing what you hired me to do. Good. Patricia will get you the authorizations. Start with the last 6 months of footage. Look for patterns. People coming and going at odd hours. Access to areas they shouldn't be in. She turned back to her computer. Ethan stood to leave. Ethan? He paused. Thank you for taking this seriously. You're paying me to take it seriously. No, I'm paying you to stand around and look intimidating. Taking it seriously is a choice. She met his eyes. I appreciate the choice. He left before the moment could get heavier. Outside, Derek was waiting in the corridor, face unreadable. Heard you're getting access to my systems, he said. Avery's orders. Right, Avery's orders. Derek stepped closer, voice dropping. Let me give you some advice. This company has politics, alliances, people who've been here long enough to know how things work. You're new. You don't know the players. You don't know the rules. Stepping into the middle of internal disputes is a good way to get hurt. Noted. I'm serious. Avery's brilliant, but she's paranoid. She sees conspiracies where there are just normal business disagreements. If you let her pull you into that, you'll burn through whatever goodwill you built on Friday. Ethan studied him. Derek looked sincere, concerned even. But there was something underneath, something careful. Thanks for the warning, Ethan said. Just trying to help. We're on the same team. Are we? Derek's smile faltered. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, just clarifying. Ethan walked past him toward the security office. I'll try not to mess up your systems too badly. The rest of the day passed in a blur of learning curves and silent observation. Ethan sat through 3 more meetings, watched Avery handle conference calls with the kind of precision that made corporate warfare look like art, and started reviewing 6 months of security footage on a secondary monitor. Most of it was mundane, employees coming and going, cleaning crews, deliveries, but around hour 4 he noticed something, a pattern. Every Tuesday and Thursday night, around 9 p.m., someone accessed the 47th floor using a master key card. The cameras showed the door opening, but never showed who went through. The angle was wrong, or the timing was off, or both. He made a note, kept watching. At 6:30 p.m., Avery stood from her desk and stretched. Ethan had forgotten she was human enough to need stretching. I'm done, she said. You can go home. You're still here. I'll be here another 2 hours. Patricia's still here. Building security is still here. I don't need you standing around watching me read contracts. Your call. She grabbed her jacket. Actually, I changed my mind. Walk me to my car. I want to talk without walls listening. They took the executive elevator down to the private garage. Avery's car was a black sedan, expensive, but not ostentatious. She unlocked it, but didn't get in. What did you see today? She asked. Ethan told her about the Tuesday and Thursday access pattern, about the missing camera coverage, about the way James had pushed back in the meeting like he'd been rehearsing. James has been with the company for 6 years, Avery said. He was my father's choice for CFO. I kept him because he's good at his job, but he's never liked reporting to someone younger than him. That make him disloyal? It makes him predictable. Disloyal is harder to spot. A car pulled into the garage. They both turned. It was Derek, parking 3 spaces over. He got out, saw them, hesitated. Evening, he called. Night, Derek, Avery replied. He walked toward the elevator, glancing back once. When the elevator doors closed, Avery let out a breath. He stays late most nights, she said, claims he's reviewing security protocols. But I've never understood why that requires being here until 10 or 11. You want me to find out? I want you to be careful. If Derek's involved in something, confronting him directly will just make him cover his tracks better. And if he's not involved, then we'll have alienated the one person who actually knows how this security system works. She finally got into her car. See you tomorrow, 7 a.m. I'll be here. She drove away. Ethan stood in the empty garage for a moment, then headed for the subway. His phone buzzed halfway home. Another unknown number. You're asking the right questions. Keep looking at the footage. Pay attention to Thursdays, especially the last Thursday of each month. He stared at the message, typed, "Who are you?" The response came immediately. "Someone who wants the same thing you do. Keep Avery safe." The message thread deleted itself. Ethan watched it disappear line by line until his screen was blank. He got home at 8:15. Mrs. Chen had already given Mia dinner and put her in pajamas. Mia was sitting at the kitchen table drawing. "Daddy!" She jumped up, wrapped herself around his legs. "Hey, baby, you been good?" "So good. Mrs. Chen taught me how to make dumplings." "Yeah? You'll have to teach me." Mrs. Chen gathered her things. "She's a sweet girl. No trouble at all." Ethan paid her. Probably too much, but she'd kept his daughter safe, and that was worth everything. After she left, he sat with Mia while she showed him her drawings, elaborate scenes of castles and dragons and princesses with swords. "How is your new job?" Mia asked. "Complicated." "What does that mean?" "It means there's a lot I don't understand yet, but I'm learning." "Do you like the lady you work for?" Ethan thought about that. "I think so. She's smart, tough. Maybe too tough sometimes." "Is she nice?" "She's fair. That's more important than nice." Mia considered this, then went back to coloring a dragon purple. "I'm glad you have a job that makes you think. The old job made you sad." The observation hit harder than it should have. "I wasn't sad, baby." "Yes, you were. You tried to hide it, but I could tell. You're less sad now." Ethan pulled her close, kissed the top of her head. "You're too smart for 6. "I know," she said seriously. "Mrs. Chen says I'm an old soul." "Mrs. Chen's right." He put her to bed at 9, read her 2 chapters of the book they were working through, something about a girl who could talk to animals, and waited until she was asleep before returning to the kitchen. He made coffee, opened his laptop, started going through everything he knew. The anonymous messages, the file with his military record, the altered financial reports Avery mentioned, the Thursday night access pattern, Derek's late nights, James pushing back in the meeting like he had backup. It felt like pieces of a puzzle scattered across a table. He could see some of them connecting, but the full picture was still hidden. His phone buzzed. This time it was a real number. "Patricia, Avery wants you in at 6:30 tomorrow. She has an early meeting off-site. You'll accompany her." "Where?" "Address attached. Wear the suit. Formal meeting." He looked at the address, recognized it. One of the most expensive hotels in Manhattan, the kind of place where breakfast cost more than most people's dinner. Ethan closed his laptop. He'd need sleep if tomorrow was starting at 6:30, but sleep felt impossible with all these questions circling his head like sharks. He thought about the message. Keep Avery safe. That was the job. That was all that mattered. Everything else, the politics, the conspiracy, the corporate warfare, that was just context, just complications. His job was simple: keep her alive, whatever it took. The hotel breakfast meeting turned out to be a trap, though not the kind Ethan had trained for. He'd arrived at 6:15 wearing the suit Patricia had arranged. Charcoal gray, fitted enough to move in, expensive enough not to embarrass Avery. She was already in the lobby when he got there, dressed in navy blue, hair pulled back, looking like she'd slept 4 hours and made peace with it. "You clean up well," she said. "So do you." "Don't patronize me this early. I need coffee before I can handle flattery." The meeting was in a private dining room on the 3rd floor. When they walked in, Ethan understood immediately why she'd wanted him there. Sitting at the table were 5 men, all north of 60, all wearing suits that cost more than cars. Avery had mentioned a breakfast with potential investors. She hadn't mentioned they were the kind of investors who could buy small countries. "Gentlemen," Avery said, taking her seat. Ethan stood against the wall behind her, hands clasped, face neutral. "Thank you for making time." The man at the head of the table, white hair, sharp eyes, a smile that didn't reach past his teeth, nodded. "Always a pleasure, Miss Monroe. Though I admit your email was cryptic. You said you had concerns about the Meridian proposal." "I do. I've been reviewing the terms, and there are clauses that concern me, specifically around post-acquisition leadership structure and employee retention." Another man, younger but not by much, leaned forward. "Those are standard terms. Meridian has no interest in gutting your workforce. They want Nixara intact." then they should have no problem revising the language to guarantee that. Guarantees limit flexibility. Flexibility is another word for loopholes. The conversation went on like that for 20 minutes. Avery pushing back, the men deflecting, everyone speaking in corporate language that sounded polite but felt like combat. Ethan watched their faces, watched the way the white-haired man's jaw tightened when Avery rejected his reasoning, watched the way another man kept glancing at his phone under the table. Then the white-haired man said something that changed the temperature in the room. "Ms. Monroe, with all due respect, you're delaying the inevitable. Your board has signaled support for this acquisition. Fighting it will only damage your position." Avery's expression didn't change. "My board doesn't make decisions for me. I make decisions for my board. That's not how corporate governance works. It's how my company works." "Not for much longer." The man's smile widened. "There's a vote scheduled for 2 weeks from now. Emergency shareholder meeting. The board is invoking Article 12 of your corporate charter, the clause that allows them to override executive decisions in matters of significant financial impact." The room went silent. Avery's fingers tightened around her coffee cup, but her voice stayed level. Article 12 requires unanimous board approval, which they have, or will have, by the end of the week. Ethan saw it then. The setup. This wasn't a negotiation, it was a notification. They'd already decided. This meeting was just them being polite enough to tell her to her face. Avery stood. "This meeting is over." "Ms. Monroe, I said it's over. You want my company? You'll have to take it. And I promise you, that's going to cost more than you're willing to pay." She walked out. Ethan followed. In the hallway, she moved fast, heels clicking on marble, breath controlled, but barely. They made it to the elevator before she spoke. "They're forcing a vote. They're actually forcing a vote." "Can they do that? Legally?" "Yes. Article 12 was supposed to be a safeguard against reckless executive decisions. It's never been used, but if the board unanimously agrees that rejecting a $4 billion offer qualifies as reckless." She stopped, pressing the elevator button 3 times, like it would make it arrive faster. "I need to know who's behind this. Which board members are working with Meridian? Because this didn't happen overnight. Someone's been building support for weeks, maybe months." The elevator arrived. They stepped in. Avery pulled out her phone, started typing something, then stopped. "I need to see the security footage from the last board meeting, the one 3 weeks ago where James first brought up Meridian." "Looking for what?" "Side conversations. Who's talking to who before and after? Body language. Anything that shows alignment. I can pull that." "Do it today. I need to know who I'm fighting." They rode in silence back to Nixara. When they arrived, Patricia was waiting in Avery's office with a stack of messages and an expression that suggested none of them were good. "The board wants an emergency call at noon," Patricia said. "James called it. He's citing the Article 12 clause." "Of course he is." Avery threw her jacket over a chair. "Get our lawyers on the phone. I want to know every loophole in that clause, every way to delay or challenge the vote." "Already done. They're sending over analysis within the hour." "Good. Cancel everything else today. I need to focus on this." Patricia nodded and left. Avery stood at her window, staring out at the city like it owed her answers. "This is what I was afraid of," she said quietly. "Not a hostile takeover from outside, a betrayal from inside." Ethan wanted to say something reassuring, something about how they'd figure it out, how she'd win. But he'd spent too many years in situations where reassurance was just lying with good intentions. So instead he said, "Tell me what you need me to do." She turned. "Find out who sent those anonymous messages. Find out who's been accessing the 47th floor on Thursday nights. Find out who's selling me out. And do it before that vote happens, because if I go into that meeting blind, I've already lost." The next week moved like a fever dream, too fast and too slow at the same time. Ethan spent every spare moment reviewing footage, cross-referencing access logs, building a timeline of irregularities. He found the Thursday night pattern extended back 7 months. Found that whoever was accessing the 47th floor was using Derek's master keycard. Found that the access always happened when Derek was conveniently logged into the system from home, giving him an alibi. He also found deleted emails in the server backup. Fragments of conversations between James and someone at Meridian. Nothing concrete enough to prove conspiracy, but enough to show coordination. enough to show intent. On Thursday night, 1 week before the vote, Ethan decided to stop watching and start acting. He told Avery he had a lead he needed to follow. She didn't ask questions, just told him to be careful. At 8:45 p.m., he positioned himself in a maintenance closet on the 46th floor with a clear view of the stairwell, access to 47. If the pattern held, someone would show up at 9. 8:57. Footsteps on the stairs. 8:58. The door opened. Ethan's breath caught. It wasn't Derek. It was Lily Park, the VP of Operations who'd warned him about Derek on his first day. She moved quickly, quietly, using a key card that shouldn't have worked on this floor. She disappeared into Avery's executive corridor. Ethan waited 30 seconds, then followed. He found her in the records room, photographing documents with her phone, financial statements, board meeting minutes, acquisition proposals. She was so focused she didn't hear him approach. "Working late?" he said. She spun, nearly dropping her phone. "Jesus, Ethan, you scared me." "What are you doing?" "I could ask you the same thing." "I asked first." Lily's expression cycled through panic, calculation, and finally resignation. "I'm gathering evidence. Someone's been altering financial records, making it look like Nixar's performance is weaker than it actually is. I've been trying to find the original documents to prove it." "By breaking into the records room at night?" "By accessing records I'm technically authorized to see but that somehow keep disappearing during business hours." She held up her phone. "These documents show our Q2 earnings were 30% higher than what was reported to the board. Someone's been cooking the books to make the Meridian offer look more attractive." Ethan felt pieces clicking into place. "Who?" "I don't know yet, but whoever it is has access to both financial systems and physical records. That's a very short list." She looked at him carefully. "Are you going to report me?" "Depends. Are you working for Meridian?" "Hell no. I'm trying to save this company. Avery built something real here. I'm not going to let some vulture capitalist tear it apart because a few board members want to cash out early." "How long have you been investigating this?" 3 months, since I noticed the discrepancies in the earnings reports." She hesitated. "I'm the one who sent Avery those anonymous messages. I'm the one who sent her your file." "Why me?" "Because I needed someone outside the system, someone who couldn't be bought or compromised. I did research, found people with your skill set. You were the only one who also had a reason to be loyal. You needed this job too badly to risk losing it by playing games." It was calculating and a little cold, but Ethan couldn't argue with the logic. "Does Avery know?" "Not yet. I was going to tell her once I had proof, but then the Article 12 thing happened and everything accelerated. We need to tell her now." "With what? Photos of documents I stole? That's not exactly courtroom-ready evidence." "It's more than we had an hour ago." Footsteps in the hallway. They both froze. Lily killed her phone's light. Ethan moved to the door, peered through the small window. Derek, walking the corridor with a flashlight, checking doors. He was 3 offices away and moving closer. "Is there another exit?" Ethan whispered. Service corridor, back corner. They moved fast and quiet. Made it to the service corridor just as Derek's flashlight swept the records room. The service stairs were narrow, dark, smelling like old concrete and cleaning supplies. They descended 4 flights before stopping. "That was close," Lily breathed. "Too close. He's looking for something, or someone." "He does this every Thursday. I've been timing my visits around his patterns." "Not well enough. He almost caught you." "I know. That's why I need help." She looked at him. "Will you help me?" Ethan thought about Mia, about the paycheck that had already changed their lives, about the risk of diving deeper into corporate warfare that wasn't technically his fight. Then he thought about Avery in that hotel, being told her company was being stolen, and the look on her face when she realized people she'd trusted were working against her. "Yeah," he said. "I'll help." They emerged from the stairwell on the ground floor. Lily headed for the garage. Ethan headed back upstairs. He needed to check something. He returned to the security office, pulled up the footage from tonight, found the camera covering the 47th floor corridor. It showed Derek doing his rounds, but the timestamp was wrong. Off by 3 minutes. Someone had edited the footage, not enough to be obvious, but enough to create a gap, a window where someone could move unseen. Ethan felt cold certainty settle in his chest. Derek wasn't just negligent, he was actively involved. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, then saw the message. Emergency shareholder meeting moved up. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. They're forcing the vote early. Avery needs to see what you found, now. He called Avery. She answered on the first ring. What is it? I need to see you. Tonight. It's important. I'm home. Come here. She gave him an address in Tribeca. Ethan caught a cab, spent the 20-minute ride organizing everything in his head. When he arrived, the building was exactly what he'd expected. Modern, expensive, doorman who looked at him like he was lost. Ethan Ward for Avery Monroe. The doorman checked his tablet. 43rd floor. The apartment was smaller than he'd imagined, but more personal. Books everywhere, plants that looked actually cared for. A coffee table covered in documents and a laptop. Avery answered the door in jeans and a sweater, looking more human than he'd ever seen her. Come in. Want coffee? I'm okay. She poured herself a cup anyway, then sat on the couch, gesturing for him to join her. Talk. He told her everything. The Thursday night pattern, the edited footage, Lily's investigation, the altered financial records, the timing that was too convenient to be coincidence. When he finished, Avery was quiet for a long time. Lily Park, she finally said. I should have known. She's smart enough to spot the discrepancies, brave enough to investigate alone. She's been trying to protect you. By going behind my back, by doing what she thought was necessary when she didn't know who to trust. Avery stood, walked to her window. The meeting's tomorrow, 2 p.m. If what Lily found is real, if they've been falsifying earnings reports, that changes everything. It means the board is basing their vote on fraudulent data. Can you stop the vote? Not without proof. And photos on Lily's phone aren't proof. I need the original documents. I need to show the board they've been lied to. The originals are in the records room, which Derek monitors. If he's involved, he'll know the moment we access those files. Then we don't access them during business hours. Avery turned. You want to break into my own company's records room? I want to retrieve evidence that belongs to you. That's not breaking in. That's reclaiming. She almost smiled. You're a terrible influence. You hired me. That I did. She checked her watch. It's 11. Building security changes shifts at midnight. Skeleton crew until 6 a.m. Derek won't be there. He's running the shareholder meeting prep tomorrow morning. If we're going to do this, tonight's our window. We? You think I'm letting you do this alone? It's my company, my risk. 20 minutes later, they were in Avery's car heading back to Nixara. The streets were empty, the city quieter than Ethan had ever heard it. Avery drove fast but controlled, the way she did everything. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. Why are you doing this? You could just show up, do the minimum, collect your paycheck. You've got a kid to think about. Getting involved in corporate espionage isn't exactly safe parenting. Corporate espionage is a strong term. What would you call it? Protecting my employer. That's the job, isn't it? The job is keeping me physically safe. This is different. Ethan watched the city pass by. 6 years ago, I left the military because I wanted to be someone my daughter could be proud of. Someone who did the right thing instead of just following orders. This feels like the right thing. Even if it costs you? Especially then. They parked in the executive garage, used Avery's keycard to bypass security. The building felt different at night. Bigger, colder, full of shadows. They took the stairs to 47, moving quietly even though there was no one to hear. The records room was locked. Avery had a key. Inside, filing cabinets lined the walls, organized by year and department. Avery went straight to the financial section, pulled out the Q2 folder. This should have the original earnings report, she said, flipping through pages. Here, look at this. She held up 2 documents. Same header, same date, different numbers. The official report showed earnings of $2.1 billion. The original showed $3.2 billion, a difference of over $1 billion. Someone replaced this after the board meeting, Avery said. Someone who had access to this room and the authority to handle sensitive documents. That's a very short list, Ethan said, echoing Lily's words. 3 people. Me, Patricia, and James. Patricia's been with you how long? 15 years, since before Nixara existed. She's the most loyal person I know. Which leaves James, the CFO, who has the technical knowledge to alter financial statements and the access to do it without raising flags. Avery pulled out her phone, photographed both documents. This is enough. This proves fraud. The board vote is based on false information. A sound from the hallway. Footsteps. Multiple people. Ethan killed the lights, pulled Avery behind a filing cabinet. Through the window in the door, he could see beams from flashlights. Security guards doing rounds. They passed the records room, kept going. "We need to leave," Ethan whispered. They made it to the stairwell, started descending, got to the 43rd floor landing when Ethan's instincts screamed. He grabbed Avery's arm, pulled her back just as the door below them crashed open. 4 men poured into the stairwell. Not security guards. Wrong uniforms. Wrong equipment. They moved like professionals. Tactical formation, coordinated, purpose-driven. "Go," Ethan said. "Back up. Now." They ran. Behind them, footsteps pounding concrete. Avery's heels weren't made for sprinting. She kicked them off, kept moving. They burst through the door to 47. Ethan slammed it shut, looked for something to block it with. Nothing. The door was reinforced steel with an electronic lock. It would slow them down, but not for long. "The training facility," Avery said, breathing hard. "There's an emergency exit. Fire code requirement." They ran. The hallway felt endless. Behind them, the stairwell door exploded open. Not picked, breached. These weren't burglars. This was an assault team. They reached the training facility. Ethan hit the lights. The space he'd sparred in 3 weeks ago now felt like a trap. One entrance, windows too high to reach, emergency exit on the far side blocked by equipment. "Move the weight rack," he said. Avery grabbed one end. Together they shoved it aside. The emergency exit was behind it. Alarmed. Opening it would trigger every security system in the building. "Do it," Avery said. Ethan hit the bar. The door flew open. Alarms shrieked. They ran into the stairwell just as the 4 men entered the training facility behind them. The stairwell was older, narrower, service access. They descended 3 flights before the men caught up. Ethan heard them above, moving fast. He pulled Avery into the 39th floor, shoved her toward an office. "Hide. Call 911. Don't come out until police arrive." "What are you—" "Just do it." She disappeared into an office. Ethan turned back to the stairwell. Counted to 3. The first man came through the door moving fast, weapon drawn. Not a gun, something else. Taser, maybe. Ethan didn't give him time to use it. He caught the man's wrist, twisted, used momentum to send him into the wall. The weapon clattered away. The second man was right behind him. Bigger, smarter, ready for resistance. He came in low, going for a tackle. Ethan sidestepped, brought his elbow down on the back of the man's neck. Not enough to seriously injure, enough to stun. The 3rd and 4th men entered together. Professional adjustment. They'd learned. One went high, one went low. Ethan couldn't dodge both. He chose the high attack, blocked a strike meant for his throat, took a kick to his ribs that knocked the air from his lungs. He stumbled back. The 4 of them regrouped, forming a semicircle. Ethan's training kicked in. Not the sport fighting from his assessment, the real training, the kind that had kept him alive in places where losing meant dying. He stopped thinking like a bodyguard and started thinking like a soldier. The first man rushed again. Ethan dropped low, swept his legs, came up behind him and used him as a shield when the second man attacked. They collided. Ethan kicked the second man's knee, heard something pop, and the man went down screaming. 2 left. They were more cautious now, circling. One of them spoke into a radio. "Targets on 39, subjects resisting, need backup." Backup. That meant more coming. Ethan couldn't win a war of attrition. He needed to end this. He feinted right, drew their attention, then grabbed a desk chair and threw it. Not at the men, at the window behind them. The glass shattered. The alarm got louder. The 2 men turned, distracted for half a second. Half a second was enough. Ethan closed the distance, hit the first man with a palm strike to the solar plexus that shut down his breathing. Grabbed the second man's arm, hyperextended the elbow, and when the man bent forward in pain, brought his knee up into his face. 4 down. Ethan's ribs screamed. His knuckles were bleeding. His heart was hammering. He turned toward the office where Avery was hiding just as the stairwell door opened again. Derek Vale stepped through and he was holding a gun. Don't, Derek said. His voice was calm, too calm. I really don't want to shoot you. Ethan raised his hand slowly. Then don't. Where is she? Who? Avery. Where is she? Gone. Out the emergency exit. She's probably talking to police right now. Derek's jaw tightened. You're lying. You want to search 40 floors? Be my guest. But those alarms are bringing everyone. Security, police. You've got maybe 5 minutes before this building is surrounded. This wasn't supposed to happen like this. Derek looked genuinely frustrated. It was supposed to be clean. Get the documents, disappear. No one gets hurt. You're stealing corporate records with an assault team. Nothing about this is clean. We're not stealing. We're recovering. Those financial records? They prove Nexar's worth more than Avery's admitting. Meridian needs them to justify a higher acquisition price. Everyone wins. Except Avery loses her company. She was going to lose it anyway. The vote's tomorrow. The board's already decided. This way, at least shareholders get fair value. You really believe that? Derek's expression flickered. It doesn't matter what I believe. I made a choice. I'm living with it. Sirens outside, getting closer. Derek heard them too. He lowered the gun slightly. Where is she? He asked again. Before Ethan could answer, Avery stepped out of the office, phone in her hand. I'm right here. Derek spun. Avery didn't flinch. It's over, Derek, she said. Police are coming. I've got photos of the altered documents. I've got you on camera orchestrating a break-in. And I've got 4 of your friends in various states of unconsciousness. You want to add assault with a deadly weapon to your list? Derek looked at the gun in his hand like he'd forgotten he was holding it. I didn't want it to be like this. Then it shouldn't have been anything at all. You could have just quit, taken a job at Meridian, been honest about where your loyalties were. They offered me $5 million. $5 million for access codes and documentation. Do you know what I could do with $5 million? I know what you did for it. That's enough. The sirens were right outside now, flashing lights visible through the broken window. Derek set the gun down carefully, raised his hands. For what it's worth, he said, I am sorry. No, Avery replied. You're caught. There's a difference. Police flooded the floor 2 minutes later. They took Derek, took the 4 men Ethan had fought, took statements from both Ethan and Avery that lasted until 4 in the morning. By the time they were done, the sun was starting to rise over the city. Ethan sat on a bench in the lobby, his ribs wrapped by paramedics, his knuckles bandaged. Avery sat next to him, still in her jeans and sweater, looking exhausted. You okay? She asked. I've been worse. That's not an answer. I'm okay. Sore, but okay. She was quiet for a moment. Thank you for what you did up there. You could have run, should have run. You had no obligation to fight 4 men. Actually, I did. It's in my job description. Section 3, paragraph 2. Protect employer from hostile threats. She smiled despite everything. I should read that contract more carefully. Probably. They sat in silence as the city woke up around them. Finally, Avery stood. The vote's in 9 hours. I need to shower, change, and prepare to destroy a board of directors. You need rest. I'll be there. Ethan, I'll be there. She didn't argue, just nodded. Okay. See you at 2. He caught a cab home, let himself into the apartment as quietly as he could. Mia was still asleep. Mrs. Chen was on the couch, also asleep, TV playing quietly. He covered her with a blanket, then checked on his daughter. Mia was curled around Mr. Hopsworth, breathing softly. Ethan stood in the doorway watching her, feeling the weight of the night settle into his bones. He'd fought 4 men. Derek had pulled a gun. Avery's company was still hanging by a thread. But Mia was safe, and that was what mattered. He was asleep before his head hit the pillow. Ethan woke to his phone buzzing like an angry wasp. The screen showed 11:47 a.m. and 6 missed calls from Patricia. He sat up too fast, felt his wrapped ribs protest, and answered on the 7th ring. Where are you? Patricia's voice was sharp enough to cut glass. Home. I was sleeping. The board meeting is in 2 hours. Avery wants you here. Now. I'll be there in 45 minutes. Make it 30. She hung up. Ethan dragged himself out of bed, every muscle screaming. The mirror showed someone who looked like they'd lost a bar fight. Bruised knuckles, split lip he didn't remember getting, a dark purple bloom spreading across his left ribs. He splashed water on his face, pulled on the suit from yesterday, and tried not to move in ways that hurt. All ways hurt. Mrs. Chen was in the kitchen making tea when he emerged. She took one look at him and frowned. "You okay?" "Long night at work." "Work did that?" She gestured at his face. "Security work sometimes gets complicated." She didn't believe him but didn't push. "Mia's at school. I pick her up at 3:30. "Thank you. I'll be back by 6, probably." He paused. "Maybe 7. I stay as long as you need. That little girl, she worries about you." "I know. So maybe you be more careful." Ethan managed a smile that pulled at his split lip. "I'll try." The subway ride to Nexara felt longer than usual, every bump and jostle a reminder of last night's fight. He kept replaying the moment Derek had pulled the gun. The calculation in Derek's eyes. The resignation, like he'd already accepted what he was becoming and just needed to see it through. When Ethan arrived at Nexara, the building felt different, tenser. Security had doubled. Police cars were still parked outside. People in the lobby spoke in hushed tones, phones pressed to ears, spreading rumors faster than facts. He caught fragments as he walked past. Heard it was a robbery. No, corporate espionage. Derek Vale arrested. 4 men in the hospital. Up. The elevator to 47 was packed with executives all heading to the same meeting. They stopped talking when Ethan entered, and the silence followed him all the way up. When the doors opened, Patricia was waiting. "You look terrible," she said. "Good morning to you, too." "Avery's in the boardroom already. The shareholders are assembling. You're standing post outside the door. Do not enter unless she calls for you or there's an immediate threat. Understand?" "Understand." The boardroom occupied the northeast corner of the 47th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows on 2 sides, a table that could seat 30 people, and enough corporate intimidation to make grown men sweat. Through the glass walls, Ethan could see Avery at the head of the table, reviewing documents. She'd changed into a charcoal suit that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Her hair was down. She looked ready for war. The board members started arriving at 1:45. Ethan recognized some of them from the breakfast meeting. The white-haired man who'd threatened Avery came in flanked by 2 lawyers. James arrived looking nervous and avoiding eye contact with everyone. Others filed in, men and women in expensive suits carrying the weight of billions in their expressions. Patricia counted heads. "We're missing 3. Lawrence Ellis, David Kimura, and Robert Chen. They should have been here 10 minutes ago." Her phone buzzed. She read the message, face paling. "They're not coming. They just resigned from the board, effective immediately." "Can they do that?" Ethan asked. "They just did." Patricia typed something back. "This changes the vote count. Article 12 requires unanimous approval. With 3 board members gone, the vote fails," Ethan finished. "Unless they replace themselves. Let me check the corporate filings." She stopped. "No, nothing filed. They just left." At exactly 2 p.m., Avery stood. The room quieted. Ethan could hear her voice through the glass, calm and clear. "Thank you all for coming on short notice. I know the events of last night have raised questions. I intend to answer them." The white-haired man, whose name Ethan had learned was Richard Sawyer, interrupted. "Before we begin, Ms. Monroe, I'd like to address the elephant in the room. Derek Vale was arrested last night under circumstances that are, frankly, alarming. He was Nexara's acting head of security. His arrest reflects poorly on your judgment." "Derek Vale was hired 4 years ago by the previous head of security," Avery replied evenly. "I retained him based on performance reviews that were, in retrospect, insufficient. I take responsibility for that failure and oversight, which is why I personally hired his replacement." She gestured toward the glass. "Ethan Ward, the man who stopped Derek and his associates from stealing proprietary documents last night." Every head turned. Ethan felt the weight of their attention like physical pressure. Some looked curious. Others looked angry. Richard Sawyer looked like he'd bitten into something rotten. "You're saying Derek was attempting theft?" another board member asked. "I'm saying Derek was coordinating with Meridian to acquire documents that would artificially inflate their acquisition offer. Documents he had no legal right to access or distribute." Avery pulled out a folder. "I have evidence of the altered financial statements he was attempting to retrieve. Statements that show Nexara's Q2 earnings were underreported to this board by over $1 billion. The room erupted. Voices overlapping, questions shouted, accusations thrown. Avery waited for the noise to die down, then continued. Someone in this company has been systematically falsifying financial data to make Meridian's offer appear more attractive than it actually is. Someone with the access and authority to alter official records. Someone who stood to gain significantly from this acquisition. She looked directly at James. Someone like our CFO. James stood so fast his chair rolled backward. That's a serious accusation, Avery. You better have proof. I do. Avery placed 2 documents on the table. Original Q2 earnings report showing $3.2 billion in revenue. Altered report showing $2.1 billion. Both bear your signature. Both were filed on the same date. Care to explain the discrepancy? James's face cycled through emotions too fast to track. Those documents are confidential. How did you obtain them? From our own records room, which I have every right to access. In the middle of the night? With an armed escort? That's breaking and entering. It's my building, James. I can't break into my own property. Avery's voice hardened. But you can certainly commit fraud, which is what you did when you altered those reports and presented false information to this board. Richard Sawyer cleared his throat. Ms. Monroe, these are serious allegations, but they don't change the fundamental issue. The Article 12 vote is invalid, Avery interrupted. Article 12 requires unanimous board approval. 3 of your co-conspirators resigned this morning rather than face what's coming. You no longer have the votes. They resigned? Richard looked genuinely surprised. When? Approximately 1 hour ago. I suspect they received some unwelcome news about federal investigations into securities fraud. Lawrence, David, and Robert were all named in the warrant that was served this morning. The room went silent. Richard's expression shifted from surprise to calculation. You can't prove I was involved. Actually, I can. Derek's been very cooperative since his arrest. Turns out when you're facing federal charges, immunity becomes very attractive. He's provided detailed testimony about who was coordinating the Meridian deal, who was receiving payments, who knew about the altered financial statements. Avery's smile was cold. Your name came up a lot, Richard. Richard stood slowly. This meeting is over. No, it's not. Avery pressed a button on the conference phone. Patricia, send them in. The boardroom doors opened. 2 FBI agents in dark suits entered, followed by 3 more behind them. The lead agent looked at Richard. Richard Sawyer, we have a warrant for your arrest on charges of securities fraud, corporate espionage, and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. This is absurd. I'm calling my lawyer. That's your right, but you're still coming with us. They handcuffed Richard in front of everyone, read him his rights, walked him out while the remaining board members sat frozen. James tried to stand. The second agent put a hand on his shoulder. James Morrison, you're also under arrest. I want immunity. I'll tell you everything. I'll testify. That's between you and the prosecutor. Right now, you're coming with us. They took James, too. The boardroom felt hollow after they left, like something vital had been extracted. The remaining board members, 8 of them now, out of an original 15, looked shell-shocked. Avery sat back down. Now that we've addressed the criminal conspiracy, let's discuss the actual business of this company. I'm withdrawing my recommendation to consider Meridian's acquisition offer. Based on accurate financial data, Nexara is worth significantly more than they're offering. We're not for sale. One of the remaining board members, a woman in her 60s named Margaret Chen, spoke carefully. Avery, I want to be clear. I had no knowledge of the fraud. None of us who remained did. I believe you, Margaret, which is why you're still here. Avery looked around the table. But this company needs restructuring. We need new board members, people with integrity, people who put Nexara's long-term success ahead of short-term profits. I'll be making recommendations over the next month. What about leadership? Another member asked. You've just lost your CFO, your acting head of security, and 3 board members. That's a lot of institutional knowledge. It's also a lot of corruption. We'll rebuild. Better this time. Avery stood. This meeting is adjourned. Patricia will send you information about the next formal session. Until then, please speak with no one about what happened here. The federal investigation is ongoing. The board members filed out quietly. Ethan stepped aside to let them pass. When the room was empty except for Avery and Patricia, Avery finally allowed herself to lean against the table. Did that actually just happen? She asked. You just arrested half your board of directors, Patricia said. So, yes, that happened. I need a drink. It's 2:30 in the afternoon. I need a drink, Avery repeated. Patricia smiled slightly. I'll have something sent to your office, the good scotch. Avery looked at Ethan. You can come in now. Lurking outside the door was very dramatic, but not necessary. He entered. Up close, he could see the exhaustion in her face. The careful makeup couldn't hide the shadows under her eyes. How long have you been planning that? He asked. Since about 6 this morning. The FBI contacted me at 5:30. Apparently, Lily's evidence combined with Derek's cooperation was enough for warrants. They moved fast. Lily, the one who's been investigating this for months while I was blind to what was happening in my own company. Yes, her. Avery rubbed her eyes. I owe her an apology, and probably a promotion. She was trying to protect you. By not trusting me enough to tell me, I understand why, but it still stings. Patricia returned with a glass of scotch and a bottle of water. Avery took the scotch. Ethan took the water. His ribs were starting to hurt again. You should go home, Avery said. Rest. You look like you fought 4 people last night. I did fight 4 people last night. Exactly, so go home. Be with your daughter. I'll see you Monday. You sure? The immediate threat is neutralized. Derek's in custody. Richard and James are in custody. The board vote is dead. I'm safe. Relatively. She sipped the scotch. Besides, you're injured. You're no good to me if you can't move. Ethan wanted to argue but couldn't find the energy. Okay, Monday. Monday. And Ethan? She met his eyes. Thank you. For everything. I know that's insufficient, but it's true. You already thanked me. Then I'm thanking you again. He left before the conversation could get more awkward. Took the elevator down to the lobby. The police presence had thinned but not disappeared. Outside, news vans were setting up. Reporters already gathering like sharks smelling blood. Ethan slipped past them, hood up, head down. The subway was crowded with the afternoon rush starting early. Ethan found a corner, closed his eyes, and tried not to think about anything. His phone buzzed, a text from a number he didn't recognize but somehow knew. Congratulations. You kept her safe. Now comes the hard part, keeping her that way. He deleted the message, put his phone away. Whoever was sending these warnings had been right so far, but Ethan was too tired to worry about future threats. Right now, he just wanted to see his daughter. He got home at 4:15. Mrs. Chen was watching a cooking show with the volume too loud. Mia was at the kitchen table doing homework, pencil moving in careful loops. Daddy! She jumped up, ran to him, stopped short when she saw his face. What happened? Work got a little rough, but I'm okay. You don't look okay. I'm okay enough. He sat down carefully. How was school? Good. We learned about fractions. I don't like fractions. Nobody likes fractions. Do you like fractions? Not even a little bit. She seemed satisfied with this. Went back to her homework. Mrs. Chen gave Ethan a look that said they'd be talking later, then gathered her things. I make extra dumplings, she said, in the fridge. You just heat up. Thank you. After she left, Ethan sat with Mia while she finished her homework. Math problems about sharing pizzas and dividing cookies. Simple problems with clear answers. Not like the problems he'd been dealing with for the past 3 weeks. Daddy? Yeah, baby? Are you going to keep this job? The question surprised him. Why do you ask? Because you keep getting hurt, and you look sad again. I'm not sad. Yes, you are. Just a little bit. Around your eyes. Ethan put his arm around her. I'm tired, but that's different from sad. And yeah, I'm keeping this job. It's a good job. It helps us. Even if it makes you tired? Even then, she thought about this. Okay, but you have to promise to be careful. I promise. You can't break promises. I know. They heated up the dumplings. Ate dinner while Mia told him about a girl in her class who brought a hamster for show and tell, and it escaped and they found it in the art supplies. Normal things, kid things, things that had nothing to do with corporate fraud or federal arrests or gunfights in office buildings. After dinner, they watched a movie, something animated with talking animals and improbable adventures. Mia fell asleep 20 minutes in, head on his shoulder. Ethan carried her to bed, tucked Mr. Hopsworth in beside her, and stood in the doorway watching her breathe. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Avery. News broke. It's everywhere. My phone won't stop ringing. This is going to be a circus. He typed back, "You okay?" Define okay. "I just publicly destroyed half my board. I'm either a hero or a villain, depending on who you ask." My father called. He never calls. "This is fine. Everything's fine." Ethan could almost hear the edge in her voice. "You need anything? Sleep, a time machine, a less complicated life." Pause. "Sorry." "Ignore me. I'm spiraling." "Don't apologize. You just fought a war. You're allowed to spiral." "Is that in the Bodyguard handbook?" Section 7. Post-traumatic stress management. A longer pause. Then, "Thank you for not making this weird." "Making what weird?" "This. Whatever this is. You're my employee, but also the person who saved my company. Those things don't usually coexist. We'll figure it out." "Yeah." "Okay. See you Monday." Monday. Ethan set his phone down, went to the bathroom, looked at himself in the mirror again. The bruises had darkened. His ribs hurt when he breathed too deep. His knuckles were swollen. He looked like exactly what he was, someone who'd been in a fight and barely won. But he had won. They'd won. Avery still had her company. Derek and Richard and James were facing consequences. The conspiracy had collapsed. So why did he feel like something was still wrong? He showered carefully, avoiding pressure on his ribs, changed into clean clothes. Checked on Mia one more time, still sleeping, still peaceful, still trusting that her father could keep the world safe. He envied that trust, the certainty of it. His phone buzzed one more time. Another unknown number. Another message. "You think this is over. It's not. You stopped the acquisition. You didn't stop what's coming. Watch Avery. Someone still wants her gone. Someone patient enough to wait." Ethan stared at the message until his eyes blurred. Typed, "Who are you?" The response came fast. "Someone who made the same mistake you're making. I thought keeping her alive was enough. It's not. You have to keep her whole, her company, her trust, her future, all of it, because the people who want to take it from her won't stop just because you won once." "What people?" "You'll know them when they show up. Until then, just remember, you can't protect someone from threats you don't see coming. And you definitely can't protect them alone." The conversation thread deleted itself, just like before, like it had never existed. Ethan forwarded a screenshot to his personal email before it disappeared completely. Sat on his couch in the dark apartment, thought about unknown threats and patient enemies, and the weight of protecting someone whose value made them a target. He thought about Mia sleeping in the next room, about the paycheck that had changed their lives, about Avery standing in that boardroom destroying her own board of directors to save her company. And he thought about the message. You can't protect them alone. Maybe that was true. Maybe he needed help. Maybe trying to be a one-man shield was pride disguised as duty. But right now, alone was all he had, so he'd have to be enough. He set an alarm for 6 a.m., lay down on the couch because walking to his bedroom felt like too much effort, closed his eyes, tried to sleep. The last thought before unconsciousness took him was simple and clear. Monday was going to be complicated. He had no idea how complicated. Somewhere across the city, in an office that didn't officially exist, someone watched news footage of Nixara's board arrests, watched Avery Monroe's statement to the press, watched the stock price spike as investors celebrated the removal of corruption. And they smiled, because everything was going exactly according to plan. The phone on the desk rang. They answered on the first ring. It's done? The board is fractured. Avery's focused on rebuilding. She thinks she won. And the bodyguard? Ethan Ward, former special operations, better than expected. He stopped Derek. Will he be a problem? A pause. Potentially. He's observant, loyal, difficult to compromise. Then we don't compromise him. We use him. How? By making him think he's protecting her, when really he's helping us isolate her. A CEO who trusts no one but her bodyguard is a CEO who's already lost. And if he figures it out, Then we remove him, but not yet. Not while she needs someone to trust. Let him be her shield. Shields make excellent targets when the time comes. The call ended. The office went dark. Outside, the city continued its endless rhythm, unaware that in the spaces between power and ambition, new plans were already forming. Plans that would test everything Ethan thought he knew about loyalty, trust, and the cost of keeping someone safe in a world designed to tear them down. But that was for later. For now, there was just the quiet after the storm. The brief moment of peace before the next war began. Ethan slept. Mia dreamed. Avery sat in her apartment staring at her reflection in darkened windows, wondering if winning was supposed to feel this hollow. And somewhere in the machinery of corporate power, pieces moved on boards that none of them could see yet. The game wasn't over. It was just changing shape. Monday arrived wrapped in the kind of gray that made the city look tired. Ethan was at Nixara by 6:45, ribs still aching but manageable, moving like someone who'd learned to function through pain. The lobby was different now, more security, metal detectors that hadn't been there before, guards who actually looked at faces instead of just waving people through. Avery was already in her office when he arrived, sitting at her desk surrounded by stacks of resumes. She looked up when he entered, and for a moment neither of them spoke. "You look better," she finally said. "I feel like I got hit by a truck, but a smaller truck than last week." "That's improvement." She gestured at the resumes. "New board members. I've been reviewing candidates since 4 a.m. Turns out replacing half your board of directors requires a lot of paperwork." "You slept at all?" 3 hours. "Maybe. You?" "About the same." She stood, walked to the window. The city sprawled below them, indifferent to corporate warfare and midnight fights. "I keep waiting for it to feel real. The arrests, the FBI, Derek pulling a gun. It all feels like something that happened to someone else." "That's normal. Adrenaline crash, your brain protecting itself." "You sound like you've been through this before." "Different context, same biology." Avery turned. "Can I ask you something?" "Those years you don't talk about, the classified deployments. Did you ever regret them?" Ethan thought about that, about nights in places that didn't have names on maps, about choices made in seconds that echoed for years. "I regret what they cost, not why I made them." "What did they cost?" "Pieces of myself I can't get back. The ability to sleep through the night, the version of me that didn't automatically scan rooms for exits." He paused. "My wife used to say I came home different. Physically there, but somewhere else in my head. She was right. I'm sorry." "Don't be. I chose it. I knew what I was signing up for. Mostly." He looked at her. "Why are you asking?" "Because I'm trying to figure out if I made the right choice. Destroying my own board. Turning people I worked with for years over to the FBI. It was necessary, but that doesn't make it feel good." "You saved your company." "By burning down relationships I spent years building. By proving I can't trust anyone around me. That's not victory. That's survival." "Sometimes they're the same thing." Avery sat back down, suddenly looking exhausted. "Patricia says I need to hire a new CFO, new head of security. Permanent, not acting. Probably new legal counsel since our previous counsel is under investigation. I'm rebuilding an entire executive structure while trying to run a company that's all over the news. Every decision I make now gets analyzed by thousands of people who think they know better. So, make the decisions anyway." "That simple?" "No. But it's the only option. You can't lead by committee when the committee might be compromised." She smiled slightly. "Is that from your military training?" "That's from watching my daughter try to make decisions with input from her stuffed animals. Turns out Mr. Hopsworth has terrible judgment about bedtime." The laugh that came out of Avery was surprised and genuine. "I can't believe you just compared my board of directors to stuffed animals." "If the shoe fits." The moment broke when Patricia knocked and entered without waiting for permission. "Avery, we have a situation." "What kind of situation?" "Lily Park is here. She wants to talk to you. She looks upset." Avery and Ethan exchanged glances. "Send her in." Lily entered looking like she'd been crying recently but was trying to hide it. Her suit was immaculate, but her eyes were red. "I'm sorry for showing up without an appointment," she said, "but I need to tell you something before you hear it somewhere else." "Sit," Avery said. "What's going on?" Lily sat, hands clasped tight in her lap. I'm resigning, effective immediately. What? Why? Because I went behind your back. I investigated the company without telling you. I broke into the records room. I sent anonymous messages instead of just being honest. Her voice cracked. You're rebuilding this company with people you can trust, and I proved I'm not one of them. Avery was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Lily, look at me. Lily met her eyes. You saved this company. Without your investigation, without the evidence you gathered, Derek and Richard would have succeeded. I'd have lost Nixara. So yes, you went behind my back, but you did it because you didn't know who to trust in a situation where trusting the wrong person could destroy everything. Avery leaned forward. I'm not accepting your resignation. I'm promoting you. What? VP of Operations isn't big enough for someone who spent 3 months investigating fraud while doing their actual job. I'm making you Chief Operating Officer. You'll report directly to me. You'll help rebuild this company, and next time you find something wrong, you'll tell me immediately instead of playing detective alone. Deal? Lily's eyes filled with tears again. You're serious? Completely. We need people who care enough to risk their careers doing the right thing. That's you. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Yes, okay. Yes. Lily wiped her eyes. Thank you. I won't let you down. I know you won't. Now get out of my office. You have a company to help run. After Lily left, Avery turned to Ethan. See? Sometimes trust is a choice you make despite evidence, not because of it. Is that directed at me? Maybe. You're still treating this job like a solo operation, refusing to let anyone help, thinking you have to carry everything alone. I'm supposed to protect you. That's a solo job. No, it's not. You proved that when you worked with Lily to gather evidence, when you trusted her information, even though she'd been hiding things. You can't protect me from everything, Ethan, and trying to will just break you. Before he could respond, Patricia appeared again. Avery, Detective Morris from the NYPD is here. He says it's about the case. Detective Morris was in his 50s, with the kind of face that had seen too much and stopped being surprised by human nature. He shook Avery's hand, nodded at Ethan. Ms. Monroe, I wanted to update you on the investigation. Derek Vale is cooperating fully. He's provided testimony about Richard Sawyer's involvement with Meridian, the payments made to board members, and the plan to force the acquisition. What about James? Avery asked. CFO Morrison is also cooperating. Between the two of them, we're building a comprehensive case. The federal prosecutor thinks she can get convictions on all major charges. He paused. But there's something else. Derek mentioned a name during questioning, someone he said was coordinating everything from outside the company, someone he only knew as the broker. Ethan felt his spine straighten. Did he identify this person? No. All contact was through encrypted messages and anonymous payments. But Derek claims this broker was the one who approached him originally, who recruited Richard Sawyer, who knew exactly which board members were vulnerable to financial incentives. So someone's still out there, Avery said quietly. Potentially. We're investigating, but without more information. Detective Morris spread his hands. I wanted you to be aware. Take precautions. If this broker sees you as an obstacle, they might try again. After he left, Avery sat very still. Ethan could see her processing, calculating, running scenarios. You're thinking about the messages, he said. The warnings. About threats from inside, about being patient. She looked at him. What if Derek and Richard weren't the real threat? What if they were just, what's the word, pawns? Then someone's playing a longer game. And we don't know who. Ethan's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, saw another message from the unknown number. You're close. The broker isn't trying to buy Nexara. They're trying to break it, make it worthless, then buy the pieces. Avery needs to look at who benefits if the company fails, not who benefits if it sells. He showed the message to Avery. She read it twice. Who keeps sending these? I don't know, but they've been right about everything so far. That doesn't make it less creepy. She stood, started pacing. Who benefits if Nexara fails? Our competitors, obviously. Shareholders who shorted the stock. Companies that want our patents and technology but don't want to pay full price. She stopped. That's dozens of potential suspects. Unless we narrow it by capability. Who has the resources to coordinate something this complex? Who has the connections to recruit board members and security personnel? Who has the patience to run a multi-year operation? Avery pulled up something on her computer. Meridian doesn't have that kind of operational sophistication. They're an acquisition firm, not a spy network. But there are 3 or 4 corporations that do. She typed rapidly. Zenith Industries. They've been trying to break into pharmaceutical research for years. Couldn't compete on innovation, so they started buying up smaller companies. Nixara's patents would be worth billions to them. Would they have the patience for this? Their CEO, Marcus Reeves, is former military intelligence. He's known for long-term strategic planning, very patient, very ruthless. She pulled up a photo. Ethan didn't recognize the face, but something about the eyes bothered him. Cold, calculating. Can you prove he's involved? Not yet, but I can start looking. She called Patricia. I need everything we have on Zenith Industries. Acquisitions, board structure, financial statements, any connections to Meridian or our former board members. And I need it quietly. Don't tell anyone what you're researching. Understood. The next 3 days were a blur of investigation disguised as normal business operations. Avery met with new board candidates while Ethan reviewed security footage and access logs. Lily helped cross-reference financial transactions, looking for payments that might connect to Zenith. Patricia coordinated with the FBI, feeding them information without revealing the full scope of what they suspected. On Thursday morning, Lily found something. She burst into Avery's office at 7 a.m., laptop in hand, looking like she'd been up all night. I found it, the connection. Avery and Ethan crowded around her screen. She pulled up a series of wire transfers. Richard Sawyer received payments totaling $3 million over the past year. The payments came from a shell company registered in the Cayman Islands. That shell company is owned by another shell company in Luxembourg. That company is owned by a trust in Singapore. And that trust, she clicked through several more layers, is controlled by a subsidiary of Zenith Industries. That's a lot of steps, Ethan said. That's the point. They wanted it buried so deep nobody would find it. But I got help from a forensic accountant friend who specializes in this kind of thing. Lily pulled up another document. And it gets better. Derek Vale received payments from the same chain, so did James Morrison. All of them funded by Zenith. That's evidence, Avery said. That's actual, prosecutable evidence. There's more. I looked at Zenith's recent acquisition history. Every company they've bought in the last 5 years went through a similar pattern. Internal conflict, board instability, stock price collapse. Then Zenith swoops in with a low-ball offer that looks good compared to the chaos. It's a strategy, Ethan said. Break the company from inside, then buy it cheap. Exactly. And they've done it successfully 8 times. Lily closed her laptop. We need to give this to the FBI. If they can prove Marcus Reeves orchestrated this pattern across multiple companies, they'll have a RICO case, Avery finished. Racketeering, corporate espionage. This stops being about Nixara and becomes about criminal enterprise. She called Detective Morris, sent him the files. He called back 30 minutes later. Miss Monroe, this is exactly what we needed. I'm bringing this to the federal prosecutor today. If it checks out, we'll be requesting warrants by tomorrow. How long before they move on Zenith? Assuming the evidence holds, a week, maybe less. After the call ended, Avery sat back in her chair. We did it. We actually figured it out. Lily figured it out, Ethan corrected. Team effort. Avery looked at both of them. Thank you, both of you, for not giving up, for caring enough to dig until we found the truth. Ethan's phone buzzed again, the unknown number. Good work. But Marcus Reeves won't go quietly. He's about to find out his operation is compromised. When he does, he'll try to destroy evidence. That means destroying anyone who can testify against him. Derek, James, Richard, and Avery. Watch her. The next 48 hours are critical. Ethan showed the message to Avery. Her expression hardened. So even after we win, we're still in danger. Until they arrest him, yeah. After that, he's someone else's problem. I'm tired of being someone's target. I know, but we're close. Just a little longer. That night, Ethan insisted on driving Avery home personally. She protested, said she was fine, said he was being paranoid. He did it anyway. Walked her to her apartment, checked every room before leaving. You're really worried, she said. I'm really cautious. There's a difference. Ethan. She touched his arm. Whatever happens, I want you to know you've gone beyond what anyone could expect. You've protected me from things I didn't even know were threats. If something goes wrong, nothing's going wrong. But if it does, it won't, because I'm not going to let it. He met her eyes. That's not bravado. That's just fact. You hired me to keep you safe. That's what I'm doing. She nodded slowly. Okay, just be careful. I'd rather have you alive and unemployed than the alternative. Noted. He left. Drove home. Found Mia asleep on the couch, Mrs. Chen dozing in the armchair. He paid her, apologized for being late again, and carried his daughter to bed. Daddy? Mia mumbled, half asleep. Yeah, baby? Are you done fighting yet? The question made his chest tight. Almost. Just a little bit longer. Okay. Love you. Love you too. He was in bed by 11. Asleep by 11:15. His phone rang at 2:47 a.m. It was Avery. Someone's trying to break into my apartment. Ethan was moving before he was fully awake. Where are you? Bedroom, door locked. I can hear them in the living room. Did you call 911? On my other phone, they said 5 minutes. I'll be there in 10. Stay on the line. Don't hang up. Don't make noise. He was dressed and out the door in 90 seconds. Left a note for Mrs. Chen, who was sleeping in the guest room. The streets were empty, the city holding its breath between night and morning. He drove too fast, didn't care, kept Avery on the phone the entire time. They're trying the bedroom door, she whispered. Don't open it. Windows? 43rd floor, not an option. Bathroom? Yeah, I can get there. Go. Now. Lock that door too. Put as many barriers as you can between you and them. He heard her moving, heard a door close. Lock click. I'm in the bathroom. Good. Stay there. I'm 3 minutes out. He pulled up to her building at 2:56. Police were already there, 2 units, lights flashing. Ethan showed them his ID, explained who he was. They let him through. The doorman was pale and shaking. 4 men, he said. They had fake credentials. I let them up before I realized. I'm so sorry. Ethan took the elevator to 43. Police were already in Avery's apartment. He found her in the bathroom, wrapped in a robe, face white but composed. She saw him, and something in her expression broke. They were going to kill me, she said. One of them said it. I heard him tell the others to make it look like a robbery. Ethan pulled her into a hug without thinking. She shook against him, adrenaline finally breaking through. You're okay, he said. You're safe. They found me. In my own home. I know, but they failed. You're still here. The police caught 3 of the 4 men trying to leave the building. The 4th had escaped, but they had descriptions. Detective Morris arrived 20 minutes later, looking grim. This was a professional hit, he said after reviewing the scene. Equipment, coordination, timing, someone sent them. Marcus Reeves, Avery said. He knows we found the connection. He's trying to eliminate witnesses. We're moving up the timeline. Federal agents are executing warrants on Zenith right now. If Reeves is there, he's getting arrested today. Avery couldn't stay in her apartment, crime scene and psychologically impossible. Ethan made a decision he hoped wasn't a mistake. Come home with me, just for today, until we know you're safe. She looked at him. Your place? It's small. It's not fancy, but it's secure and nobody knows the address except people I trust. Okay, yeah, thank you. They arrived at Ethan's apartment just as dawn was breaking. Mrs. Chen was already awake, making breakfast. She took one look at Avery and understood without explanation. Sit, I make tea, you eat. Mia wandered out in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes, stopped when she saw Avery. Hi, she said. Are you the lady my dad works for? I am. I'm Avery. I'm Mia. That's Mr. Hopsworth. She held up the rabbit. I remember him, still very distinguished. Mia climbed onto the couch next to Avery. Are you okay? You look sad. Avery's smile was shaky. I had a scary night, but I'm okay now. My dad's really good at making scary things go away. Yeah, he is. They sat like that while Mrs. Chen made breakfast, eggs and rice and tea that tasted like comfort. Ethan fielded calls from Patricia and Detective Morris and the FBI. At 9:47 a.m., Detective Morris called with news. We got him. Marcus Reeves was arrested at Zenith's headquarters. He's being charged with racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder, corporate espionage, and about 15 other counts. The men who broke into Miss Monroe's apartment are cooperating. It's over. Ethan relayed the information. Avery closed her eyes. It's really over? Really over. She started crying. Not dramatic sobs, just quiet tears of relief. Mia, without being asked, climbed into her lap and hugged her. It's okay to cry, Mia said seriously. Crying helps the sad get out. Avery laughed through the tears. That's very wise. I know. I'm very smart. The rest of the day passed in a strange haze. Avery slept on Ethan's couch while he and Mia went to the park. When they came back, she was awake, looking more human. I should probably go home, she said, to my actual home, or a hotel. I'm intruding. You're not intruding, Ethan said, but if you want space, actually, can I stay? Just one more night? I don't want to be alone yet. Of course. That evening, they ordered pizza. Mia insisted Avery help her build a blanket fort. They watched a movie together, all three of them squished into the fort, Mia between the adults, talking through the entire thing. It was chaotic and cramped, and nothing like the life Avery was used to. She loved every second of it. Later, after Mia was asleep, Ethan and Avery sat in the kitchen drinking tea Mrs. Chen had left. Thank you, Avery said, for everything. Not just tonight, all of it. You already thanked me. I'm thanking you again. She wrapped her hands around the mug. I spent years building walls, keeping people at a distance, thinking trust was weakness. Then you showed up with a wrinkled shirt and a daughter and Mr. Hopsworth, and somehow you knocked all those walls down without even trying. I wasn't trying to knock anything down. I was trying to keep you alive. You did more than that. You reminded me what it's like to let people in, to accept help, to trust someone completely. She met his eyes. I don't want to go back to who I was before, the person who thought she had to do everything alone. Then don't. It's not that simple. Why not? Because I'm still CEO of a billion-dollar company. I still have responsibilities, expectations, a public image to maintain. So maintain it. Just stop pretending you don't need people. Everyone needs people. That's not weakness. That's being human. Avery was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I want to offer you something. A real position. Not just personal security. Chief of security for Nexara. You'd oversee the entire department, build a team, have resources. You've earned it. Ethan thought about it, about the money, the prestige, the career trajectory. Then he thought about Mia sleeping in the next room, about Mrs. Chen and blanket forts and pizza nights. I appreciate the offer, but I like what I'm doing now. I'm good at protecting one person, building a department, managing teams. That's different skills. Skills I'm not sure I have. You could learn. Maybe, but I'd rather be great at this than mediocre at something bigger. He paused. Besides, if I took that job, who'd drive you home and check your apartment for intruders? She smiled. Fair point. So you're staying? If you'll have me. Definitely. She stood. I should sleep. Tomorrow's going to be another media circus. Can I use your couch again? It's all yours. She paused at the doorway. Ethan? One more thing. Yeah, Mia's right. You are really good at making scary things go away. After she left, Ethan sat alone in the kitchen. Thought about the past month. About how one interview had turned into a conspiracy and a gunfight and arrests that made national news. About how protecting someone's body had somehow turned into protecting their whole life. His phone buzzed. The unknown number. One last message. You did good. She's safe now. All of you are. This is the part where I tell you who I am, but honestly, it doesn't matter. What matters is you learned the lesson I learned too late. Protection isn't about fighting threats. It's about building trust, making connections, creating systems where people look out for each other. You did that. Keep doing it. And Ethan, stop trying to carry everything alone. You've got people now. Use them. The message didn't delete this time, just stayed there. Ethan read it 3 more times, then put his phone away. He checked on Mia, still sleeping, still peaceful. Checked on Avery, curled on the couch with the blanket Mia had insisted she use. Both of them safe. both of them here. For the first time in 6 years, Ethan felt something he'd forgotten how to feel. Not happiness, exactly. More like peace. The kind that comes from knowing you did something right. Protected someone who needed protecting. Made choices you could live with. The kind that comes from not being alone anymore. He turned off the lights. Locked the doors, set the alarm. Did all the small rituals of making a space secure. Then he went to bed and actually slept. 3 weeks later, Nexara held a press conference. Avery stood at a podium announcing the new board of directors, the restructured executive team, and the company's renewed commitment to transparency and ethical business practices. The stock price was up 40%. Investor confidence was at an all-time high. Ethan stood off to the side, watching. Lily caught his eye and smiled. She'd been officially promoted to COO the week before. Patricia was running the new legal compliance division. Marcus Chen had been promoted to head of training. The company was rebuilding, but this time with people who'd proven they could be trusted. After the press conference, a reporter caught Ethan outside. "You're Ethan Ward, right? The bodyguard who stopped the assassination attempt?" "I'm head of personal security, and it wasn't an assassination attempt. It was a home invasion." "Still, you saved her life. How does that feel?" Ethan thought about the question. About Mia asking if he was done fighting. About Avery crying in his kitchen while his daughter hugged her. About the lesson he'd learned about protection being more than just violence. "It feels like doing my job," he said. "Nothing more complicated than that." But it was more complicated and simpler, because the truth was, he hadn't just saved Avery's life. She'd saved his too, pulled him out of a spiral of single parenthood and minimum wage and trying to be enough all by himself, given him purpose, community, a future that extended past next month. That night, he picked Mia up from her new school, the good one, with the art program she loved. They stopped for ice cream, walked home through streets that felt safer now, somehow. More possible. "Daddy?" Mia asked, chocolate ice cream on her chin. "Yeah, baby? Are you happy?" The question was so direct it caught him off guard. "Why do you ask?" "Because you smile more now. Real smiles, not the ones you do to make me feel better." "When did you get so smart?" "I've always been smart. You just noticed now." She swung his hand. "So are you. Happy?" Ethan looked at his daughter, 6 years old and already seen through him. He thought about everything that had happened. The fear, the violence, the moments he'd been sure everything would fall apart, but also the moments after, the rebuilding, the trust, the discovery that asking for help wasn't failing, it was surviving. "Yeah," he said, "I think I am." "Good. You deserve it." "So do you, baby." "I know," she said simply. "I have you. That's enough." They walked home together as the city lit up around them, two people who'd learned that strength wasn't about carrying everything alone. It was about knowing when to let others help carry the weight, about building something bigger than yourself, about trusting that the people you protect might also protect you. Above them, in her apartment that felt less empty now, Avery stood at her window looking out at the same city. She'd won, kept her company, survived a conspiracy that should have destroyed her, but more than that, she'd learned that winning didn't mean doing it alone. It meant finding people worth fighting alongside, worth trusting, worth letting in. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. "Mia wants to know if you're coming to her school play next week." "She's a tree. Very important role." Avery smiled, typed back. "Wouldn't miss it. Trees are crucial to any production. She'll be thrilled." "See you Monday. See you Monday." She set her phone down, looked at the city, felt for the first time in years like she wasn't fighting it anymore. Like maybe, just maybe, she'd found a way to be both the CEO who built empires and the person who showed up for school plays. Like maybe being human wasn't a weakness after all. Somewhere in the machinery of the world, there would always be new threats, new conspiracies, new people who wanted to tear down what others built. That was the nature of power, the cost of success. But there would also be people like Ethan, who showed up with wrinkled shirts and refused to quit. People like Lily, who spent months investigating alone because they believed in doing the right thing. People like Mia, who understood that crying helps the sad get out and that trees are important roles. And maybe that was the real lesson. Not that you could protect yourself from every threat, but that if you built the right connections, trusted the right people, and stayed true to what mattered, you could survive anything. Not alone, never alone, but together. The city lights glowed against the darkness. 3 people in 3 different places, connected by choices made and trust earned, a father and daughter. A CEO, learning to be human. A found family built from necessity and strengthened by choice. The story could have ended differently, should have by most measures, but it didn't. Because sometimes, when you stop trying to carry everything alone, when you let people in despite the risk, when you choose trust over fear, sometimes you get to keep what matters. Sometimes you get to win, and sometimes that's enough.